Okay, welcome everyone. This is Premier Chess Adult Beginner, April 2021. This is week 6, and we're going to be discussing the topic of territorial domination and the importance of space and how to increase it. And we're going to analyze a game, a Grandmaster game, to illustrate that point. So, since these analysis of these top level games, it seems like you guys enjoy it, so we're going to continue. So white in this position is Jeremy Silman, and black is Fromanek. 1989. This is the World Open. So let's look at this position first of all. So first of all, let's talk about space. So like how would you define space in terms of, like, if I say I have a lot of space, how would you define that? What do you think that means?
I think it would mean that you control a lot of the squares that are, especially in your enemy's territory.
Okay. So when you say, like, this is my space and that's your space, it means in chess terms, not just like, my room and your room. No, in chess terms, it's like the space usually behind your pawns. So usually, this including the squares your pawns are on and behind. That's all considered your space. So if your pawns are far advanced, right, you can say you have a gain or an advantage in space, and your opponent is relatively more cramped. So in this position, white's position, or in this position, which one do you think has more space? Which side?
White.
Yeah, white has slightly more space, right? We have this pawn on d5, which exerts control on e6 and c6, and I mean, you could say this bishop is kind of bad bishop because it's blocked by its own pawns. However, it's not so bad because it could escape something like that, maybe exert pressure here, maybe jump around and come out of the pawn chain that way. And so, yeah, so black's bishop here, you could say this is a good bishop in the sense that it's on the opposite colors of the pawn chain. However, it's not really doing much, right? Because its scope is quite limited due to that d5 pawn, right? So yeah, just looking at this position. Yeah, go ahead.
Say that again about the bishop on the opposite squares. That didn't click.
So, this bishop, the b7 bishop, we can say it's a good bishop because usually when we say good or bad bishop, we mean is the bishop on the same color as the pawn surrounding it, or on the opposite color, right? So here it would be on the opposite color as the pawn surrounding it. Therefore, we would say this is a good bishop. However, this bishop still has not much scope due to this wall right here, this pawn block. So it's kind of hampering its scope, right? And one thing that we know with bishops is they thrive on long open diagonals, right? So this would be a relatively closed position, not completely closed, relatively closed. So here knights tend to dominate in this kind of position. All right. So if given all of that, so we said white has a slight advantage. Black is slightly cramped here. Oh, we got Anthony. Good. So if you were white in this position, what would you play? What do you think would be a good move for white here? Oh, by the way, Samantha, do you know the chess notation? Like,
I brushed. Sorry, that's my 4-year-old in the back.
No problem.
I brushed up on that link that Evan had sent.
Oh yeah, that's right. Good.
I need to see it being used. I need to see it in context.
Yeah. So yeah, just so real quick, right? You see the letters A, B, C, D, all the way up to H, right? So this would be the files: A file, B file, C file, D file, all the way up to H file, right? And then we have 1, 2, 3. All these are the ranks, right? So the ranks go from on the either sides of the board: first rank, second rank, third rank, fourth rank, all the way up to 8th rank. And then we have, of course, the diagonals, right? So to identify a square, you just use the coordinate B5, right? And if you want to say knight, you say knight to B5, right? Or queen to, let's say, queen to, let's say here, queen to B3, right? Something like that. So yeah, just to eliminate, when I ask people for the right move, they say pawn there, And I'm like, what do you mean there? I can't. I don't know where you're pointing. So the coordinates help a lot with that. So no using your fingers. Okay, no there. Gotta say the squares. Okay, cool. So is that clear? Is that understandable?
Yes.
A little bit. Cool.
To answer
Awesome.
your question, I would guess bishop to g5.
Okay, bishop g5. Okay, so what's a good move here? So bishop g5. So what does that do? That pins the knight, right? Do you know what that term means? Pin. Good. So the knight would not be wise to move. You'd be losing your queen, right? This would be actually just a review. What are the two types of pins? You guys remember two types of pins?
Absolute and relative.
Exactly. And now, what's the difference? Meaning, what would this be? This bishop here. What kind of pin would that be?
Relative.
Yes, relative pin. You can move the knight if you want. It's not recommended in most situations because you would lose a queen, which is a more powerful piece. But it's not against the rules to move the knight, right? But for example, if the king was here instead of the queen, then that would be an absolute pin, and you cannot move the knight at all. It'd be against the rules to move the knight because you can never put yourself in check. Okay, so bishop g5. Okay, so you're pinning the knight, not really forming any threats. I guess you can just push h6 and you can decide what to do, go back, take. So not really yeah. So all right, so what else? Anybody else have an idea? What do you think is a good move? Or even not even a good move, what's a good plan for white? Because this is not like a puzzle, like what's the correct move. This is like everybody can have a different interpretation of what the best plan would be here. So yeah, more like that.
Queen to e2.
Okay, so what's the purpose of queen e2?
Well, you got both white bishops pointed toward the enemy's king side.
Right.
And so I would try to get my queen over to say h4
So
or
maybe
h3.
queen e2 with the goal of f3, maybe bring the queen this way,
Yeah.
or exerting pressure like that.
Yeah.
All right, interesting. Okay. Anybody else? Any other ideas? What do you think? So, Anthony, so just to go over, this is we're talking about the topic of territorial domination and the use of space. How do we use space to gain a winning position and defeat our opponent? So yeah, this is the position. I'm just asking, what's the best move here, or the best, or what's a good plan?
I like pawn f4 and then start pushing stuff forward.
Okay, so pawn f4, actually that move is given a question mark by the author. Why? And why do you think it's given a question mark? Okay, first of all, what does a question mark mean?
Dubious
What's it do?
move.
Mistake. Question mark means mistake. So not like a blunder. Blunder is like an obvious loss of material, but maybe this is like a mistake. It's like it's a little bit worse than a dubious move. It's kind of giving black the advantage. So why is that? How is that giving black the advantage? What do you think?
Gives them more space.
So what would be a good response for black here? What do you think?
Well, maybe knight g4, right?
Knight g4. Let's see.
Or maybe not. I was thinking bring the
I think
queen.
knight g4, and now white would love to continue pushing, gain more space, right? That's a beautiful position for white now, right? So not knight g4. What's a better move than knight g4 here?
Pawn takes f4.
Right. So you take the pawn, and now why is that a good move? Because now this knight has a beautiful little outpost here, right? And this and the reason that f4 would be kind of a mistake, we would say, is because the knight cannot be scared away by a pawn anymore, right? So this is almost like a permanent outpost, although the bishop can capture, but most of the time not recommended to capture a bishop for a knight, but this is a really nice situation for the knight to be in, right? Completely unassailable position for the knight, right? And of course, if he takes, now this knight can drop back to e8, come to e6, and this will be a protected passed pawn. And in I believe, we mentioned Nimzovich's My System, right? And he always has some kind of analogy for these kinds of situations. But yeah, so typically the idea, whenever you have a protected passed pawn, the knight is like the best piece to put right in front of it, right? Number one, because it blockades the pawn, right? Doesn't allow it to move. And number two, the knight, even though it's blockading, it's still exerting pressure on other squares around it, right? Which shows, how versatile the knight is in these kind of semi-closed positions, right? So you have a connected pass pawn, and then you blockade it with a knight. It's excellent situation. So yeah, that's definitely considered advantageous for black. But you kind of have the right idea that you want to start pushing. You want to increase your advantage, because white does have a slight advantage. So what would be, so f4 is kind of the idea, but we need a preparatory move before that. What do you think?
E3.
G3, yeah, G3 preparing, right? Because now if we takes, you replace it with the f pawn, and now the knight is prohibited from coming onto e5, right? So we don't want to give e5 as an outpost for black, right? So G3, very good move. And then we have knight e8. Okay, and then we have f4. Okay, now queen e7. So now it says white enjoys substantial kingside space advantage, and if the G file does open up, like with F takes with E takes F4, G takes F4, the G file will open up. It seems like the white king would be in danger, but just move to H1, and then we can bring the queen and the rook, and now this king becomes in danger, the black king on the G file, right? So that becomes a nice file to work with for white. So basically, black does not want to take that pawn, right? So F5, so he pushes. Okay, F6. So black's goal basically is trying to close up the position, right? So definitely white has a space advantage here, right? The problem is that's not enough to win, right? So we have to know how to convert that to a win. So black's goal is to, he's like, I want to lock up everything so that you can't even get through at all. So that's kind of black's goal. So so F6. So let's look at another possibility. What if he tried G6? What do you think about that? Let's see, G6. Maybe white can try. So this is opening up this this dark squared diagonal, right? And black does not have a dark squared bishop, so that's definitely a weakness. Bishop H6, knight G7. And now, what do you think? What do you think would be a good move here for white? What do you think?
Bishop to G7.
Okay, so you take the knight, king takes, and now I think that actually helps black. So remember, black is more cramped, right? So the side that is cramped, do you think does that person want to trade pieces or avoid trading pieces?
You want to trade pieces.
Yeah, so if you have less space, then your pieces have less area to move in. So trades would definitely benefit the cramped player, right? So here black is definitely cramped. So trading would make him happy. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to make him happy. You don't want to make your opponent happy. Just not a cooperative game, unfortunately. So yeah, this bishop is very powerful here, pinning the knight, exerting a lot of great influence. So no need to get rid of this bishop. And this knight is doing nothing, absolutely nothing. So there's a better move than bishop takes G7. What do you think?
On
On
to
F6.
F6.
Okay, pawn F6. So let's look before I move the pieces, let's see if you can figure it out. So F6, so that forks queen and knight, forcing the knight to take the pawn. So now what's the best move after that? Maybe I should move the pieces so a little bit clearer. Let's move the pieces. So f6. So forking queen and knight. Knight is forced to take. Now white's best move here. What do you think?
Bishop to g5.
Yes, bishop g5, right? Brings the bishop back, pinning the knight, and so double attacking the knight, immediately threatening to win it. So before I move the piece, so what do you think black's best move would be?
Knight to h5.
Say it again.
Knight to h5.
Knight to. Oh, okay. So it's G knight to h5. All right, good. You can do that. Yeah, knight goes to h5 or knight to G to e8 could be also. And then do you see what's best? Black's best. Sorry, white's best response here for that?
Queen f2.
No, actually, that that does put pressure. Okay, so let's look. So here, okay, if you go here, let's see, Queen f2 does put additional pressure. He can successfully. Yeah, that's too slow. Queen f2 is too slow because now I assume you want to maybe you want to triple up, right? You bring the queen, the rook, and then the other rook, right? But that's kind of too slow because now that gives black a chance to attack the bishop, and the bishop either is forced to take the knight or retreat. So it's going to lose the pin, right? So we need something a little stronger than Queen f2. Anybody else?
Let's go pawn g4.
All right, so pawn g4. Okay, it looks like it frightens away the knight, but all it really does is now he can block. Now the best that black can do or that white can do is win a pawn, which is still good. But then again, remember, white we sacrificed a pawn to get to that position, so now we're back to equality. Right? Yeah, we're back to equality. So now the knight is no longer pinned. Now you can simply reroute the knight, knight d7, knight e5, and he has a beautiful outpost again, right? So what else? Not g4. What else? So let's go back. Actually, yeah, it doesn't matter. You can do it this way. Okay, so what do you think? Better move than g4.
How about B4?
B4. I mean, doesn't really do much. So the idea here is that we have white on the run, basically, right? We're attacking twice. So the question is, how do we increase pressure here? That's the question, right? So, all right. So let me help you guys out. So we want to increase pressure here. So if we try to, let's say if we try double rooks, right? Rook f2 to try to bring the other rook, right? Again, not really fast enough because now the king can come here and now he can scare away the bishop. And now there's kind of, he's got enough protection. Again, no more pin. And yeah. So let's go back. All right. So here, a very nice move here would be to be a little bit quicker and sacrifice the exchange temporarily, right? This is a very strong move. Rook takes f6, right? Forcing knight takes, and now there's no more there's only one protection for the knight, which is the queen. We bring the other rook with tempo, right? So this is a very quick way to win this knight. And if the king does come, doesn't really work because he just loses his queen that way, right? And now after all that, we have won a knight, right? So very nice. So basically, all that is saying is that these dark squares are very weak around the king, especially because he doesn't have a dark square bishop to protect it. So our bishop is basically taking advantage of that fact. All right. So he didn't play g6, he played f6. All right. So let's continue. So f6. All right. What would you say if you were white? What is the best move here? What would you do?
You have 3 white pieces on the C file, C1, 2, and 3, that are pretty much doing nothing, correct?
Okay.
Wouldn't you want to do something with one of those? Bring it out into the, the conflict?
Okay. What do you think? What were you thinking about?
That's as far as I got.
Okay. So basically development. You want to develop your pieces, right?
Right.
It's true that this bishop has not been developed and the rook on a1 has not been developed. But here, in these kind of closed positions, development is not as important, right? Not as important because things are much closer. So really the goal of these kinds of positions is to open up lines for your, like, usually files for your heavy pieces, right? The rooks and the queen to enter and invade, right? So that's really the goal, and black's goal is to keep things closed. The more closed they are, the better for black, right? So white's goal, he wants to open things up as soon as possible, right? So really development is not all that important in these kind of closed positions. So given that, what do you think white did here?
Just keep the pawn march, g4.
Yeah, g4. Yeah, definitely. So g4 continues his plan of trying to open up lines. So it says white's kingside advantage is undisputed. He will increase this advantage, create an open file for his rooks, and dominate, right? So his goal is to open up the g file, definitely. Okay. All right, so let's continue. G5. So black definitely wants to keep things closed. So now white could have played en passant here. And that is an interesting possibility. He didn't though, but he could have. And now maybe a good plan would be to develop the bishop and maybe pile on onto this f pawn. Although for the moment the f pawn is pretty well defended, right? So yeah, we don't know how effective that would be, but that's a possibility. So he didn't take there. So what do you think white did here? What do you think you would do as white?
H4.
Yes, h4. Yes, immediately striking at the g pawn, and so a file will be opened up without a doubt. So yeah, definitely h4, h6, right? Black following his plan of trying to maintain the position as close as possible. All right, so now what do you think for white? What would you do here?
Queen to H2.
Okay, good. Queen H2, anticipating the file to be opened. That's good. So here's the thing, right? In this position, white has a space advantage, right? Slight space advantage, not that much, but he definitely has a slight space advantage. So and he could take this pawn at any time, right? There's no rush to take this pawn. So the thing is, so white can open up this file whenever he wants. Now, when you have the advantage, the space advantage, there's no need to rush. In fact, it's probably better if you take your time, right? Because you want to be poised to open up the position only when it benefits you, right? And so, and again, black has he's at a space disadvantage, right? So the more captures occur, the better it is for black. So we only want to capture here when we're entirely ready to do so, right? So no need to rush and capture this. So queen H2 is a good idea. White didn't do that. Instead, he played a similar thing, king F2. So anticipating that the H file will be opened, he runs with his king and maybe allows the rook to come over to H1, right? So king F2. We have knight C7. So now what do you think white played here?
Oh, rook H1.
Yeah, exactly. So he's again, this file is about to be open, so definitely start placing your heavy pieces on the H file, right? Very good. Rook F7. So now it says white can open the H file at will, but will only do so at the proper moment after you can double or triple on that file, right? So again, white can take his time, right? White has a space advantage, so no need to rush, and only do it when it's ready, when you're ready. So maybe, triple, and then the queen comes behind, and that's going to be very nice. So no rush at all. All right, so rook F7, we have bishop E3, right? Opening up the other rook to join the H file. Rook H7, rook H3, king G7. So black is also anticipating the H file being opened, right? So he's preparing himself. Rook H1, rook A to H1, rook A to H8. Okay, and now here it says black would only, let's see, black would only be too delighted to trade heavy pieces on the opened H file after H takes G5. Remember, trading pieces only benefits the player with the least amount of space, right? So if we were to trade now, and then he takes back, probably a bunch of exchanges would occur here. All the rooks would be traded off. And remember, we just said that the player with the least amount of space benefits with exchanges. So that would actually make black very happy. So yeah, our goal is not to make our opponent very happy. So therefore, he probably didn't take on G5. So what do you think white did here?
Probably king F1.
Okay, so king F1, I assume preparing queen H2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a good move. Not what he did, but that's also a good move. So what else? Anybody else have an idea?
King to G3 to support the.
Um, king
Then open
G3.
up the queen.
I mean, if anything, maybe king F3, like because I mean, I guess king G is fine too, but yeah. Okay, that's a possibility too. It's not what he did, but it's a possibility. So what else?
Bishop F1.
Bishop F1, with the goal of what?
You get the. I was thinking to try to protect the knight on F3 on the first exchange.
Protect the knight on F3 here.
I mean on H. I mean the.
Oh, the
protect
rook on H3. Oh, okay. No, Not really. Okay, so here's one thing that you can try. You can think about whenever you see a position, especially when it's like a closed position like this. One question you can ask yourself is: are all of my pieces on their optimal squares? Right? Are they doing? Are they being productive? Right? Are they doing useful tasks? Right? So, which of White's pieces do you think are not productive?
White bishop.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You mean the light square bishop, I assume, right?
Yeah, light square.
Okay, so bishop on d3, good. Yeah, that's definitely a bad bishop. Could. Okay, so we can possibly reroute this way outside of the pawn chain. Okay, that's one. And what's another piece that's probably not doing as much as it could?
Knight on c3.
Yeah, the knight is kind of out of play, right? It looks like a lot of action is happening in the king side. The knight's all the way over here doing not much. So now the question is, where do you think would be a good spot to put the knight?
B5,
Say again?
B5.
Oh, b5. Okay, so if we go knight b5, again, we can trade, and that will usually benefit black. So we don't really want to trade so easily. So yeah, try a different square. What else? What else? What's a different square for the knight? That would be ideal.
H5.
Say again?
H5.
H5. Yeah, very good. This is a nice square for the knight, right? So that was noticed by White, right? So then, therefore, he played knight e2, right? The knight is headed for the beautiful outpost here, right? Very nice. Okay, good. Okay, so now we have king g8. So knight g3, knight e8, right? Maybe trying to, if the knight does go to h5, he wants to come here and try to trade it off. He would love, black would love that opportunity. So yeah, so he didn't go knight h5 for that reason. What else do you think White did here? What's another move?
I think now I'd want to get the king out of the way to get the queen in position.
Oh, so maybe king f1, king is f3 or f1, something like that.
Yeah,
right?
F1 or
Okay, that's a good plan. Okay. I mean, for the moment, like, so that would be three pieces bearing down on h7, and for the moment, black is sufficiently protected, right? 1, 2, 3. So that would just lead to a bunch of exchanges, which black would love. So yeah. So what else? What else could White do here? What would be a good move?
queen a4.
All right, queen a4. That is good. Targeting a weakness on a7. Okay, that's a possibility. So yeah, so now so here's an interesting thing. So sometimes especially if you are in a space advantage. So one interesting tactic that you can do is, so visibly White is preparing to open the H file, right? He's putting a lot of tension and anticipation on the H file to open it up, and black is definitely responding to that, right? So now, so the advantage that you have, that White has, having a space advantage, is that White can reorganize his pieces much easier and much more quickly than black, right? Since black has less space and is more cramped. So this is what White did. So he seemingly focused all of his efforts on the king side, and now he's shifting, and now he goes on the queen side, right? So now he's kind of moving over and say, you know what? I changed my mind. Let me go on the queen side. So b4, knight f8. So perhaps seeming that, so maybe he can open up the 7th rank, bring his pieces there if need be, right? So now, okay. So now we determined that the knight was the poorly placed piece, and now what's another poorly placed piece that you said, Leonard? What's the other poorly placed piece?
The white squared
The light
bishop.
square bishop, right? So now white goes about trying to activate this bishop. So queen d2, now freeing up the c2 square to
Mhm.
try to exit the pawn chain, right? Queen d2, bishop c8, bishop c2. By the way, do you think taking on b4 would help black or white? What do you think? Let's go back. What if he took here? Or sorry. What if black took? Yeah, what if black took? Would that help? What do you think? Who do you think that would help?
I think white. Now white can
Yeah,
advance the
definitely
pawn.
white. Yeah. So now white has a half open file here to work with, bear down on this pawn and destroy that. So if that were to happen, probably white's best move would be to completely close the king side and then transfer all of his pieces
Mhm.
to the other side and begin invading or putting pressure on a7, right? And also he also has this possibility of pushing here as well. So yeah, definitely taking there would benefit white. And let's see, bishop c8. And if he took here, I don't think that would really benefit white at much. I mean, because if he, black can take back, and it's true that white can come here, but for the moment, this file is pretty nicely closed. I mean, it can be protected by black, and the knights can come, and so it's not so easy. Maybe the rooks can. Maybe he makes room for the rooks first, something like this, and brings the rooks here, and he can pretty well protect the queen side. So. And then if he takes with the d pawn, now this creates a weakness right here on b6. So now he can, well, first of all, he closes the h file, and then he transfers his rooks to the b file, pushes the pawn, and creates a weakness here on b6, and can bear down, or even can invade on the a file as well. So yeah. All right. So bishop c8, bishop c2. Okay. So now black, so black definitely sees that he wants to go to a4, right? So for the moment, black prevents him from doing that. Queen d7, bishop b3, and I'm not really sure why black's queen left this this diagonal, because it seems like this was a good diagonal. I mean, I guess he couldn't stop the black bishop for long because the queen could just come down here and force his entrance onto a4 and into the black position that way. So maybe that's why he moves his queen, but he went queen a7. So he allowed the black bishop on a4. So now he says white improves his position slowly, whilst black is helpless to stop him. Bishop a4 gets his bad bishop out of the pawn chain. All right, bishop d7. Okay, so now, so you're white. What do you think the best move is for white here?
You play b5, you just keep choking black.
Yeah, b5.
b5. Yeah, I mean, okay. So your idea is just to, I guess, move the bishop and then maybe push and take something like that?
Just trying to choke him on space.
Okay. I mean, we don't want to completely close up the position. This is close to being completely closed up. We do want to have some counterplay. So yeah, because this definitely blocks off our own bishop. All right. So, all right. So what else? What else is a good move here? Any ideas? What do you think? So first thing is our bishop's being attacked, right? So we got to do
Yeah.
something about that. Either move it away, protect it, or move it somewhere else.
I'd want to try bishop c6, but I guess it's pointless if black doesn't take. But
So bishop c6 is the powerful move. Yes, very good. So bishop c6, why is that a good move? Why is that a
Well,
good move?
if they did take it, then you
Yeah, look at
do
this
that.
pawn. Beautiful pawn there, right? Very on the 6th rank, 2 squares away from promotion. And all we have to do is play play b5, and this is a protected pass pawn, which is even more powerful. And it's
I
not in
almost didn't
danger.
say it. I'm sorry.
Say again?
I'm sorry. I almost didn't say it because I thought, well, it's pointless if they don't take it. But
Oh, if they don't take it. All right, so let's see if they don't take it. Yeah, so if they don't take it, which he did he take? I'm not even sure. I mean, it might have stopped analyzing this game at this point. I mean, the game went on, but so yeah. So what if he doesn't take? What if he goes like Queen D8? What do you think would be a good move here?
On B5.
Okay, so he could do B5 now, right? This bishop would be very powerfully protected. Um, I mean, the position is getting pretty closed up. So he didn't do B5 just yet, although that is a good move. So before B5, he anticipated this B file opening up,
Hmm.
right? So he plays Rook B1. Now Queen comes to C7, threatening to win the pawn here. Now he goes B5, and now, so what if he takes here? What do you think would be a good move here? How would you take back
I would think with the D pawn.
with the D pawn? Okay.
Well, I was thinking that you'd bring the queen up, but
Yeah, then you would have to start putting pressure on this backward pawn. I mean, it is pretty weak, but yeah, if you, I mean, it'll take time to gather your rooks and double and all that stuff. So if we took with the B pawn, on the other hand, now it's a little bit easier. Now the rook is already bearing down on B6. All we have to do is advance the A pawn to A5, trade here, create a nice weakness here, and then just pile up and win this pawn, right? And this pawn on C6 is doing an excellent job of preventing the rook from coming to B7. Also is doing an excellent job of preventing the knight from coming to D7 and protecting the pawn. So this pawn is very, very weak, and in this situation will likely be lost fairly soon, right? So yeah, just and if he goes A5, of course, Queen B2, and now this pawn is completely lost. He can't protect it at all. This, see how powerful this C6 pawn is really cramping black even more, and doing a great job at that. So yeah, so this is one example of how you turn a situation like the first. So compare this situation, right? This position to the first position, right? This position, there was very little space advantage for white. There was some, but very little. But the question is, how do you convert this to the end goal of this? That's the question, right? And it's very slow, piecemeal moves that slowly, inch by inch, increase your advantage and your space at the same time as cramping up the pieces. Now look at these. Look at the black's pieces. They're all cramped up on the king side, right? All on the king side. The only thing on the queen side is the queen. And because white has the space advantage, so white can very easily shift the pieces to where they're needed, whereas black is a lot slower, right? Black is a lot slower. So that is one great advantage. When you have a space advantage, you can shift to either side, either flank very easily with ease. So yeah, that's this game. Jeremy versus Silman versus Fromanek. So any questions with this game? What do you guys think? Questions, comments, observations? What do you think?
So I have a question.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
white started going to the other side, why didn't black just attack the side that white was like leaving? Like, why not
Oh,
take?
you mean the H file?
Yeah.
So how would he attack?
So I guess he can start with H4,
Oh, you mean taking here, or
Yeah.
taking the H4 pawn?
either or, pushing them.
So if he took here, I mean the knight would just recapture. I mean it would have to be a exchange sacrifice, because in this position he can't go knight g7 because then knight f6 forks king and rook, right? And if he takes, so let's look at that. What if he takes here? Like who does this look like it benefits that trade? What do you think?
But even before that, like the knight, if you move the black knight to G6,
Well, the knight can't go to g6 because the pawn.
duh. Okay, that makes
Right,
sense.
right. Yeah. So if black does open this up, this definitely benefits white. Right now, the rook has the half open file targeting this very weak pawn. He can choose to either win this pawn or pile up and win this pawn. So now white has choices on which side he wants to win and invade. Right. So it's just amazing. Look how cramped black is. This knight. Look at this knight, for example. This knight cannot move anywhere. No squares that this knight can move to. Completely blocked off. Right. This black knight only has one square, G7. So this is I think this game is a great example of when you have a space advantage, do not hurry, right? Take your time and reorganize your pieces and make sure when the position does open up that it definitely benefits you, right? Because there is no rush when you have the space advantage. Your opponent is the one that's going to be shuffling around, doing nothing, waiting for you to open up the position, right? So I think that's what this game teaches, that you have to have patience. A lot of beginners, they're always like attack, especially the younger kids. They always want to attack, and they just forget about their own king. First of all, in the openings they forget about their own king, and that's why they lose. But also, if you have a space advantage and you open up too quickly, again, you could be benefiting your opponent, right? Trading off a bunch of pieces, and now your opponent's really happy, and then a draw might occur, right? So you want to make sure that when you do open it up, it benefits you. Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
Mm.
What do you think of this game? Do you think it was a good demonstration of that principle? What do you think?
Yeah,
I
Very
thought
good.
it was.
it looks like something Petrosian would have done.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, very, very likely. Petrosian, also Steinitz, William Steinitz, who's the first official world champion. He also kind of had a style kind of like Petrosian, where I think his games are famous for like king walks, like during the middle game where the king will go from one side to the other, or just help in the opening up his position, just add another attacking piece or defending piece, right? and again, he definitely was not a brilliant, wild, sacrificial player, right? Very positional, very slow, methodical, and took his time. So yeah, and like I say a lot, I think you guys who've taken my class before, when there's tension on the board, like for example here, right? There's tension, and who does it benefit? Who does it benefit to maintain this tension? It benefits it benefits the player that has the most space, right? So why not just maintain the tension? And as I say, often when there's tension, sometimes your opponent just cracks and makes a bad decision, right? And then you could just capitalize on that. And you don't even and then the good moves kind of just fall into your lap, and you don't even have to figure out, rack your brain, what's the best move, what's the best move, where's the combination? No, they're just going to give you the best move because your opponent just cracked. And it's like psychological, it's like chess is not only it's not only just a game of math or combinations, but it's also psychological, right? So people can get psychologically defeated before they're actually defeated, right? Like imagine playing black. Like, wouldn't you feel psychologically defeated? Like, let me switch this board. Look at this. If you were playing this position, how would you feel? Would you feel good? No, this is very psychologically defeating, right? And after a while, people get a little bit self-destructive. Like, I don't want to be in this position. Let me just sacrifice my knight here or do something, try to open something up. So that's another reason why sometimes maintaining the tension is helpful, because your opponent will just like kind of self-destruct. So yeah. See, this is kind of how I play chess, right? Different way. It's not only about the pieces on the board, but it's the psychology of the play as well. All right, so cool. Any other observations? Yeah, I have a couple of games in this type of genre that we can look at next time. For next time, so I can pick another one like this. But yeah. Yeah, these are good games to kind of look at, because space is something that it's a more advanced concept that beginners and especially kids who are just starting, they don't really understand the value of having a space advantage. Everybody understands the value of like, oh, I won your queen, or I won your bishop, or I won your but what's the value of having a space advantage, right? So one of the values is that it makes all those other tactics and combinations that much easier, right? When you have a space advantage, everything just kind of falls into place, and conversely, for your opponent, everything kind of falls apart when you have a space disadvantage. So that's one reason. Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's that. So yeah, for next week we'll do a similar thing with another game. Yeah, seems like you guys enjoy this
Yeah.
setup, right? This type of class. Cool. Is there any requests for next week that I go over, or you want me to just pick something? Are any of you following like the candidates tournaments? What's going on now?
A little bit.
A little bit. Like yeah, I think it's like Nepomniachtchi. Everybody know what the candidates tournaments are? It's like the the games between the top super GMs, grandmasters that will see who will face Magnus Carlsen for the world championship. So yeah, I haven't really gone over those games much, but I've seen a couple of them, and yeah. Any of those games stand out to you guys? Anybody analyze any of them, like on a chess YouTube video or anything like that?
No.
Not much. Okay. Yeah, they've been really going like analyzing them a lot in different chess YouTube channels. So sometimes I follow it, sometimes. All right. I mean, yeah, we got a few minutes, but any other comments, questions? What'd you guys think? You learn anything new that you didn't know?
One of the problems I have is I as I'm developing, I'm not paying too close attention to protecting my pieces all the time. And so I'm trying to get better at, when I do make a move, that I trying to make sure the piece is either protected or will be, like, say, on the next move. So I don't leave too many
Mhm.
pieces hanging.
Right, right. Yeah, you guys know how I always say every time you look at a puzzle, and you see one piece is unprotected, right? A little flag should go off in your mind that there will most likely be a combination associated with that piece, right? With an unprotected piece.
Mhm.
So yeah, very important to make sure your pieces are well protected. And I mean, that's another reason why I always tell students to be very slow and deliberate with your moves. Don't try to, try to do an attack just with like two pieces or one piece. Some really ambitious students, they take their queen and they try to do everything with the queen,
Yeah.
and they leave their other pieces in the dust. So make sure to include all your pieces, right? They all want to participate in the party, right? So make sure you include
Mhm.
everybody. Nobody wants to feel left out. Cool. Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. All right. So if there's no other questions or comments, I guess we'll finish up with that.
Right.
And yeah, so we'll see you guys next week. And I'll pick another good game we can go over in detail. And hopefully you guys can, utilize your space advantage a little bit better. Hopefully. All right. So good seeing you all.
Yeah.
And
Good
I will
game.
see you next week.
Thank
All
you.
right.
All right. Have a wonderful
you.
day, a wonderful week.
Thank you.
You too.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.